All right. So welcome everyone to Anki 101. My name is Kishore. I am a T4. As crazy as that is to say, I just finished T3 and it was definitely a doozy, but I'm going to make sure that you guys have at least a foundation understanding of Anki before moving forward. So, like I said, my name is Kishore. I'm a T4. I've done OPLGs and peer review sessions on the weekends for T1s and T2s. The T2s are going to be getting their own series of review sessions in the kind of coming weeks when they start T2. So keep a lookout for that. There are sign-up sessions. Our sessions are not affiliated through the school. So just be aware of that. You're not going to be getting academic credit or any sort of points or etc. that you would need to fulfill an academic requirement from SGU. This is just done for the pureness and goodness of our own learning, as well as sharing the wealth of knowledge that we have collected so far as upper termers in general. So the first thing I want to introduce to you guys, and I know there's a lot of T1s here today, is Anki. Anki is awesome. Let me tell you, it's one of the greatest little system that hijacks your memory capacity and takes it to the next level. And this little session is going to try to identify and provide you guys that basic level of understanding and give you guys some technical support that's going to be not recorded, but it's just going to be purely for you guys to figure out Anki and to get you guys set up for when you guys start classes on Monday. Now, I want you guys to know that you need to potentially have Anki open or at least follow along what I'm going to be showing you. So that way, when we get to the more complex and stressful things, you guys can, jump in and ask questions. For those who are raising your hands, feel free to unmute yourself and ask right away. I have no problems being interrupted. I will always keep spieling away. So just be aware of that. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, so here's the TPLG. It's not just myself, there's a couple of us, so just be aware of that. The important thing to know is that our Facebook group has access to a whole bunch of resources and helpful guides as well as documents that can really help facilitate your learning at your time here at SGU. There are other DES groups. I've linked those out to our Facebook page as well as our Google Drive. As always, Scrubs and Dog Mom DES, big shout out to them. They've really pushed me and what I do to the next level. Feel free to follow them too. They have great resources and information. They also hold review sessions, so just be aware of that too. Awesome. Let's move on. Now that I've given my spiel, here's the TPLG kind of logo. Just be aware of that. And let's do our first slide. So what the heck is Anki? So everyone's like, oh my God, Anki is the most amazing thing in med school. Everyone's doing it. It's like this cool thing. It's like the popular kid in school. Everyone knows about it. Everyone's kind of intimidated, but at the same time, it's critical to have a proper understanding of what Anki is and how to utilize it to the best of your abilities. I'm going to preface this by saying I am no way a pure and like expert on this. I know Anki to a level, and beyond that, there are way smarter people out there who can give you much more detail into Anki than I could ever do. And my goal here with this session is to make sure that you guys are set up and you're good to go when you guys start your school year. Okay. So what the heck is Anki? Anki is a space-based repetition model. It essentially takes what you would do in terms of memorizing and learning and takes a lot of the guesswork out of the system. Because traditionally in med school, what you would do is you attend lecture, you then go to your dedicated study time, and you have your second pass at the material. That is your post reading. Some people have a zero pass, which is the, I guess, pre-reading or incorporation of the first essential kind of pass through the material. Second pass would be during lecture, and then third pass for a lot of folks is the post-read process. And then they would repeat this model over and over again until the material essentially stuck with them till test day or beyond, and hopefully beyond. But it's not a clean system because there are pitfalls with this. You don't often know what you're not good at. You know for sure what you are good at because you're good at it. It shows you every single time, like, oh, yeah, this material makes sense. Like I can review this, I can explain this to someone else. But what you can't do is really explain the concepts that slip your mind or details that you miss in lecture that you need to kind of rehearse and go through and memorize. So Anki is basically a mobile / laptop program that helps memorize and making material easier to digest and learn. And essentially, in how I like to think about it, it's a fancy smancy flashcard based system that incorporates space-based repetition into it, right? The thing with, like, you guys can use Quizlet or other things that are out there that's really helpful for a lot of folks, but you have to have a lot of guesswork in it because you can go through all of the cards that you need to for your exam, but you won't know what the cards that you aren't super confident in. So that's why Anki helps a lot with this. And I'll explain what that means in a short bit. So what is space-based repetition? It incorporates it when you guys cover neuro in term 2, it incorporates encoding, it incorporates processing, and it introduces intervals to test your recall. And the best thing that everyone says in med school is, and it's important, is recall. Whether you're doing recall during practice questions or if you're doing recall via Anki, it's essentially reinforcing what you learned, right? That's the encoding process. The processing process is you post-reading, and then recalling it is pulling it out from that particular part of your brain, right? What it also adds is a time interval to this, right? When you're going through this, you're like, oh yeah, today I just finished learning about, I don't know, Amanita palloidin, which is basically a death cap mushroom from FTM. But am I going to remember it 1 day from today, 2 days from today, 3 days from today? Or maybe I need like multiple passes through it today, at least like 5 to 6 times that exact same card before it gets sufficiently encoded into your brain. Now, the important thing is that it takes the guesswork out of this, right? Let's say you're super unfamiliar with the concept, right? You can straight up just be like, I don't feel too comfortable with this card, moving right along. Here with Anki is you get to learn what you don't know and then repeat it until it stays in long-term memory. And that's important because you are always going to be good at what you know, but you're not going to be so good at what you don't know. Okay.
Excuse me, if I could ask a question real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
So does that make Anki a smart system in where if you get a card wrong, it like it shows up more often, or shows up for a longer period of time?
Correct. Exactly. That's a good point, Julia. It's absolutely true. Whenever you get a card wrong, and it's not wrong in the traditional sense, and I'll show you guys what I mean wrong in the traditional sense. Like in an exam, you can miss a question and you're like, oh crap, this is over for me. But with Anki, it says, okay, how comfortable was I with this card? Could I identify certain elements, or could I just, know the bare minimum of what's on that card? And I'll explain what that means when I show you guys the demo and how I kind of go through all of it. Okay. But the key thing before we kind of continue is that you have to be honest with yourself when you're doing this process of going through Anki. It's going to be a grind. Okay. Trust me, you're going to be doing like 500, 600 cards a day, and you're sitting there absolutely dreading it. But you have to be honest when you're doing the cards is if you get something wrong, even though you think you know the material, you have to mark it down as it being wrong, right? It's important because it tells the system, hey, this person is kind of familiar with this material, but he or she isn't really fully concretized with that knowledge. So let's give them that card again, maybe in 1 day, or maybe in 3 seconds, or maybe in 10 seconds. It doesn't matter. So it's going to be based off of your honesty and candor with the material. Okay. Let's do the next one. So getting set up. I promise you with Anki, it's a lot of trial error. Okay. You gotta be comfortable with making mistakes with this program, right? It's not the most user-friendly, and you guys will see why. But essentially, what you need to know is that it is a trial and error process. A lot of times there's compatibility issues with the Mac and PC, but you gotta be willing to kind of delete everything and start over again if you need to, especially this early on. So don't be perplexed if you can't load your cards into the program, so on and so forth. Okay. I'm going to show you guys all of that in a hot minute, how to download Anki, do all of this. But my setup is very minimalistic, right? The version I'm currently running is 2.1.43 on my MacBook Air, right? It's running Mac OS Big Sur. Everyone should be running Big Sur because that's what you guys need if you're Mac users to deal with ExamSoft, which is your exam monitoring system when you guys take exams. I also use a monitor. If ever I'm not looking at you guys directly and I'm staring off into the yonder, it's because I'm staring at the monitor. So I have a giant monitor and I put my Anki cards there. I like having a big giant canvas to look at everything. I'm a visual person, so it helps a lot. Now, you need essentially a couple of things to kind of get you started aside from just downloading Anki. You also need some add-ons. The add-ons, and specifically like the essential kind of crucial thing that holds it all together, is hierarchical tags. That tag system essentially is your way of sorting through the material. And it's both useful for yourself as well as cards that are pre-made. Okay. And I'll explain all of that in a minute. Now, you have a couple of deck options. What I mean by a deck is essentially a set of cards, right? If you think of it in a traditional flashcard system, you made your cards and now you sorted them into based off of subjects or material that you're familiar or unfamiliar with, and you use it to the same extent like you would with Anki. There are a couple of them floating out there. Currently, I use Grace's M1, M2 modified deck, and that M1, M2 deck is modified, and what that essentially means is it's specific and pre-sorted into the term that you're currently in. And I'll show you guys the link and directions on where to find these decks as well. There's also, for my folks out there who are much higher terms than me, there's the cheesy deck for step prep. That's really helpful because especially if you're a visual person, it has a lot of like the extraneous visual external resources that you need, like Sketchy, Athoma, Osmosis, all of those incorporated in there, along with the traditional step material from first aid. Now, the other option that you can have, and I want to emphasize this is optional, is a video game controller. I have a controller that is essentially, it was like I think it was like $10 controller from Amazon that I just bought, and I'll show you guys. I just use it, and it completely changed how I do flashcards. It kind of made it more fun. Right? I'm a big video gamer, if you guys can't tell by my ample amount of nerdiness. Add-ons that I use, I keep it very minimal. You can have a lot of different things, and I want to emphasize that you can get very, very fancy with it. What I use is Fastbar with night mode that allows you to schedule and move around cards at a different time point. Like, for example, let's say tomorrow you have a very busy schedule and you have like small group, you have 2 lectures, you have a club meeting, and you gotta, I don't know, go to a family get together, and you just don't have enough time to burn through all of those cards. Okay. You can reschedule with the fastbar with night mode support. Essentially, it takes the cards and says, okay, I'm going to move it to the next day or 2 days or 3 days or whenever it needs to. And then I'm going to show you those cards. But I'm going to explain why that's not often a good thing, but it's good to have just in case. Now, you can get very fancy with it. I sent you guys the link to this. The slides are already on my PLG page, on the Facebook page. This link gets you to all of the fancier, more advanced configurations. So just be aware of that. But my setup is very minimalistic. I just want everyone to be up and running with Anki if that's what you want to explore and learn today. Okay. Also, feel free to ask me anything. You know, you can unmute yourself. I have no judgment. Um, tags, okay? Tag your it is just my cheesy way of saying it allows you to sort your material, okay? The hierarchical tags, essentially add-on, or the current Anki build has a built-in tag system, takes the material that you have and sorts it into topics based off of decks. And it's not sun decks, it's sub decks. I think I'm still in vacation mode, so I'm thinking of sun decks. So I will correct that typo in a hot minute. Um, Allows you to read others pre-sorted material on Anki is a key thing, especially if you don't make your own cards and you want everything pre-sorted into its own kind of nice build. You can do that with this add-on or the built-in Anki's tag system. Now, the critical thing is if you make your own cards, it's important to sort them into tags so that you can keep your cards separate from others, as well as ensuring that you can always search them much more efficiently. And as always, in med school, organization is key. And I'm going to go more on that for my T1s when we get to our Q&A session on Friday. But the T2s and beyond who are here, they know that it's critical to have a schedule and it's critical to follow it through as much as you can. And it's important to organize along the way. Now, all other add-ons are basically up to y'all. It's straight up y'all's, preference. If you want to get fancy, throw a nice background on Anki, so you have a nice, pretty skyline to look at when you are doing cards or shedding tears. You can go ahead and do that. All of those kind of fancier add-ons are on Kevin's tutorial. Kevin is a great upper termer med student. Here at SU is kind of relative, but he's in his clinical rotation years. So just be aware, he did a great job covering it, but it's a very long video and you can skip through different parts if you have a lot of interest with Anki and you want to incorporate it into your learning experience. Okay, so that link is also there. So what deck do I choose? Sorry, I had to throw in the Yu-Gi-Oh reference because I'm a child sometimes and it makes sense to break up the tension. So you always go with the deck that you think best suits your learning experience. So one, there are a couple of options. You can build your own deck, right? It sounds as cool as it is. You make your own flashcards, you make your own Anki cards that you're going to use on the daily, and then you review it and review it and review it until the material gets reinforced. That's really helpful because some folks I know straight up watch lecture and then make Anki cards based off of what they hear in lecture as well as the lecture slides. And it's important that you get to very like SU specific lecture slides and you don't just use a lot of external resources because it's important. And I will make sure that's covered during the Friday session as well. Now, you can also use the pre-made decks, and this is a very good option for lazy folks like me who don't want to do all of the grunt work, but are following in the footsteps of a lot of amazing med students who have gone ahead and did this for us. So what I currently recommend, and these are some good options, is Grace's M1, M2 deck, and those are very specific to the term or topic that you're trying to learn. So just know that, and it's helpful in that regards because you can just literally download this thing, click a button, and boom, it's there, and it shows you everything that you need for that specific term, right? And I think it takes a lot of the effort out of the way to make your own cards and sort them and do all these things because I'm a lazy person. Classic M1, M2 deck, it's not sorted and it requires a little bit of technical interest. So just be aware of that. The link is in Kevin's video, so just be aware of that too. And for those who are joining us from the beyond, that sounds very dark and ominous, but if you're doing step prep or any sort of other thing, there's the Zonky deck, Cheesy Lightyear deck, and Rosencephalon decks that are out there that have plenty of different options for those who are focusing in on prepping for step 1 or step 2, so on and so forth. Or you can do both, which sounds crazy, but it's a possibility. Why is that important? Because sometimes these cards are made by other students. truth be told, they're mostly made by other students, and the language in which they speak isn't always going to be the same way. And so when you make these cards, you're often sitting there and you're like, it's not exactly the way I would word it. So here it is. So make your own cards, or you can combine the two of having pre-made decks and then sharing. Also, I see a hand raised, so feel free to unmute and ask away.
I have a question.
Yes.
You talked about the video link. Is it on the SUG Anki PEP page? We can see those links, or I'm trying to look at the links for the video you talked about.
Yeah. So
for
if you
yourself and for.
If you click this link right here, even if you downloaded this as a PDF, it should just go directly to YouTube and share the video that I'm referring to, Kevin's video.
Where's the PDF?
The PDF is on my OPLG page. The link to that is right here. So feel free to scan the QR code and it'll take you directly to the Facebook group. Any other questions?
I have a question. I wanted to see
Can I look quickly?
deck has only SU specific questions, and does it include Zonki or Anking? I have heard Anking is one of the good decks as well.
So the SGU one has those incorporated, but it's not always going to show up because students have taken this and sorted it to make it SGU specific. You got to be aware of this because when you're studying for a board exam, it is completely different to an SGU module specific exam because the material you're learning is very detailed. They're expecting you guys to be subject level experts at this. Which is not what the STEP exams want to test you on. They want you to have a kind of a well-rounded knowledge of everything and not get into so much of the nitty-gritty. Obviously, at SGU, they're going to make sure that you are well prepared for these exams by learning those high-level details so that when you show up to the exam, you can pinpoint things that you need to know and then eventually do well on these exams. And I see other questions.
Can you show the code, please? Sorry.
Yes,
The
what's
code.
up?
The code. I need to take a picture of that code. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Give me 1 second. There you go.
No. Okay, just a minute. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm joining now. Okay. I'll join so you can accept me when you say thank you.
Yep, no problem. Any other questions? I think Halia?
Yes. So I was wondering, for us term one students who are not really, we are just like getting our feet wet with Anki, like we're starting, we don't know anything. Like what's some good decks for us to like start using?
I would say M1, M2. It takes a lot of the guesswork and stress that you might have of creating your own cards. It's very term specific. The material tends to be relevant and appropriate to the level that you guys need to learn it. Instead of something that's more classic like the M1, M2 deck that's not pre-sorted and it has a lot of different decks included with it, as well as like I wouldn't touch any of the step prep decks because you guys aren't prepping for an exam at that level. You guys are very focused in on the module level exams at this point.
Right. So what should we use when you said M1, M2, do you mean the one that Grace has or the classic one?
The one that Grace has.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll show you guys a link to all of this when we get to the demo portion of our day today. But that's what I'm recommending for folks who are just getting started, who just want essentially the bare bone build of Anki and moving forward.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. One more question and then we can move right along. I see someone else's hands is raised.
I just had one question. Is the Grace Anki deck SCU focused?
Yes, it is. It's very much focused on that. You have to learn SU specific material. And when you're learning those SU specific material, Grace's deck has helped me a lot, because not only does it give a lot of details, but it also includes directly from the lectures that you guys are going to be getting. So just be aware of that. Good. Any other thing? We're good?
Sorry, I had a question, Kishore, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. One more.
So I watched Kevin's video a little while ago, and I was kind of following along with his with how he set up his Anki with the M1 M2 deck that he provided a link to in his description.
Mhm.
And I think he showed a way to sort like the material for FTM into weeks. So I
Yes.
just wanted to ask if we set it up in that way, would it be similar to how Grace set it up in her deck, or would you recommend getting Grace's deck instead?
I think here's the thing. With Grace's, it's pre-set up, so that's nice. So that's like, you don't have to go through that entire motion that you went through of kind of going and setting it up week by week. And she does a nice job of having materials broken down even further by topics. So for example, I'm a T4 and we are going to be covering pharmacology. And she has, within the week 1 of when we're learning term 4 material, she has pharmacology specifically dedicated for that. So it gets even further nitty gritty if you want to go topic specific and learn it. With the classic M1, M2 deck, obviously you have to go in and manually dig through and find your topics that you want to learn within Anki. I hope that answers your question.
You would recommend Grace's deck just to kind of
Yeah,
remove that
especially if you're
complication?
Yeah, just to remove that complication, if you're trying to just get started with something essentially what you need to get through SU's term 1, I would say Grace's M1, M2 is a good one to go to.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, moving along. So how does this thing work? This is the screen that you often will get to when you're going and learning your Anki cards, and it's very basic, bare bones, like flashcards. You can get very fancy with this and add more things, so just be aware of that. And then you can, let me see one more thing. When you're going through this, you're essentially running through this and saying, okay, paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria may be confirmed with flow cytometry with detection for the lack of CD55 and CD59. You guys have no clue what I'm talking about because it's a term 3 thing, but just know that I knew what that card meant, and you essentially get this card right? According to, and in very simple terms, you got the card right. But Anki will say, okay, you got this card right. Now, how comfortable are you with it, right? It's going to give you a series of intervals, right? It can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 day, 2 days, depending on how comfortable you're feeling with the card, as well as do you need to reinforce it a couple of more times? Maybe you got the card wrong and you need to see the card again in less than 10 minutes or less than 15 minutes. So just be aware of this. The intervals are going to essentially change. So it's important to know that. Okay. Any questions? No. Okay, moving forward. So what does this interval mean essentially? In simple terms, it means that you will see this in less than, sorry, is someone unmuted? Make sure
I
you
have a
guys stay
question,
muted. Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Make sure you guys stay muted, and then we'll address any more questions during the Q&A session. Let me just finish through this, and then we'll cover any questions that you guys have. So essentially what this means is in the intervals, you're either going to see it in less than 10 minutes, and it'll show you the card again. In less than 15 minutes, it's going to show you this card again based off of how you think you did on the card. In 1 day, if you're feeling pretty darn comfortable with it, and then 2 days, if you're super familiar and you're just killing it in terms of Anki, this is how it's going to be kind of spaced out. Obviously, these intervals will change if you have a new card, right? If you have a new card that you're seeing for the first time, it's going to first show you less than a minute, maybe 10 minutes, and then maybe it'll say, if you're comfortable with it, I'll show you in 15 minutes. And then finally, it'll say, I feel super duper happy with this card. So it's 1 day, I'll show you this card 1 day from now. So just be aware the intervals do change, okay? Now, before we get into the more demo component of this, I just want to emphasize these points because these are the essential takeaway points that I want you guys to know. Anki should not be your primary source of learning, okay? I don't care what anyone tells you otherwise, you should not be doing cards just to memorize cards, right? Because there's no way you're going to have context and relevancy with the material if you are essentially seeing a card and it makes no sense to you. That's why you have to attend lecture. I mean, it's required, essentially. You have to make sure you at least get through your pre-read or post-read or whatever your actual process of learning is, and then use Anki and practice questions to reinforce the material. Like I said, encoding, processing, reinforcing, and then retrieval. Those are the essential components that you guys are going to need to make long-term memories of this material and your knowledge base. It helps reinforce. I keep saying this. It reinforces what you're learning, and you have to be honest with yourself as to how much you have mastered that material. Okay, when you're going through the cards, there's nothing wrong. I swear to you guys. I've had people tell me like I feel bad about clicking like hard when we're going through this kind of interval system, right? And they feel bad because they feel like I kind of know the material. Why am I picking hard? It's because you need to be honest with yourself and make sure that you see those cards a couple of more times until it becomes properly reinforced, right? Until it actually becomes easy and second nature to you. That is a level of candor and honesty you need to have with yourself when you're going through this Anki process. Make sure you follow the schedule of learning. It doesn't matter what you do in med school, as long as your schedule is thorough and consistent and covers the material, you guys are going to be fine. I swear, it feels dreadful at the moment, but it's going to be a-okay. Okay. As always, and this is a very philosophical statement, learn it and don't just memorize the cards, because when one fine day you do talk to a patient, they are not going to give you an Anki card to make a diagnosis. You are only making these cards so that you can reinforce what you know and apply it, right? So don't just be like, okay, I need to know nocturnal hemoglobinuria, and it has this flow cytometry, and I'm looking for marker CD55 and CD59. You're not going to be telling a patient that. The patient's not going to be telling you that. So it's important that you're aware of this, okay? And as always, be patient with the cards and yourself. This is hard. This material is not easy. If everyone did it, there'd be way too many doctors on any given day. This is a journey. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Okay, that is my philosophical spiel for the day. And you've got to be aware, Anki will sometimes crash for you. It's going to suck those days. And I promise it's not the worst feeling that you're going to have, but it is something that you can overcome. A lot of the technical issues that you guys are having can be addressed at SU Anki Peeps Facebook page. The link to that is in this slides that are already posted on the page. So feel free to click on it, join it. They are great. They will help you guys out. Those are a bunch of upper termers and people who use Anki on the daily. I am also one of those people. So I will try to help you guys to the best of my abilities. If I can't, feel free to post to that page and they will help you. Okay. That being said, live demo time. I'm going to go over Anki and setting up and everything. So just be patient as I switch over screens. Okay. Let me get Anki up and running. In the meantime, hold on to your guys' question. If you guys have any burning ones, feel free to ask.
Just quickly, what time is the Q&A session on Friday you mentioned?
Same time. It's going to be 1 p.m. AST.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Okay.
And how can we join it?
The same process. You guys are there's a sign up link on my page, and you guys can sign up there, and the Zoom links will be emailed out to you guys. Okay.
I've done your page, so but I think I've not been approved, so, but I will check.
Okay. Let me see and make sure everyone is accepted, because I know we do have more people joining. Member activities. I don't see any requests.
I sent for Ajuga, Ajuga. So, don't know if it's been acceptable. Let me see.
Yes, but we'll make sure we'll accept everyone, and you guys get access to the thing.
Okay. Mine have been approved. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. The important thing to now know is that where to download and get this whole thing started. So feel free to like minimize Zoom and follow along in the small window of what I'm doing. I'm just going to run through the basics with you guys of downloading and getting this started. So important to know is that you don't need to always have the latest and greatest version of Anki, okay? You will need to often just use an older version if you have some compatibility issue. So make sure you guys read carefully, right? It's the latest build. You don't need the latest and greatest. Most of the things work on it on the regular. You can use a previous stable build of 2.1.44, which is one of the versions that I'm planning on upgrading to. Or if you really are having issues, you can always download, you can always download older versions. So this has a link to a GitHub page, and from there you can find a version that is best compatible. I will run through individual issues that you guys are having in terms of downloading and installation in a hot minute, okay? Now, once you do that, here is the next component. Let me share my desktop one. Okay, well, you get to look at my pretty pink background, always lovely with squiggles. So this is Anki. So I have it saved here, and it has all of the things, all my essential tabs that I use. So I go ahead and click on it, and it should just load you up to this little profile page. So what is a profile? This profile essentially sets up a profile for the material that you are going to be uploading to Anki, or you're going to be using to build your own deck. There are a couple of ones that I've added here. One is the cheesy, that's the step deck that I use for step 1 prep later on that I just downloaded recently. There is the main deck that I use on the daily basis, and I'm going to open that up for you guys to see. So here it is, M1, M2 pre-sorted. So when I was in term 2, this is Grace's deck, and it shows you specifically, you know, each of the module specific things that you're going to cover, which is endocrine and repro. I'm sorry for all the T1s who are here. I will also download the M1, M2 for the term 1, and I can show you guys that as well, or help you guys get to the page where you can download these things. And you guys can see how within the module, you can then do specific things like week 1, anatomy, histology, physiology, so on and so forth. So it gets very nitty gritty as to what you want to learn that day. Okay, that's one of the benefits of using Grace's pre-sorted decks. You literally just open the file and that you've downloaded, and it's there. Okay, I'm going to pause now because I know there are questions. So what's up?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So in terms of like your settings on your Anki, are you just using like default settings, or is there any
Yep.
special settings you're using? Okay.
I'm using default settings, and I'll show you guys that. Just 1 second.
So how do
Oh,
you
wait.
view the, I didn't see the profile page when you like first, maybe because I don't have an account, I'm not sure.
So this is how it'll look, the profile page. So this is the
Oh.
profile. You can add one, you can rename one, you can delete one. So like there's a whole bunch of options. So,
Okay, because when I first opened my page, it doesn't look like yours. It just has this page that you're on. It says like Dex, add, browse, you know, at the
Yeah.
top.
And you can always
Okay.
click switch profile here. For my Mac users,
Oh.
it's like that's an option. I'm pretty sure there's an equivalent one on PC, so just be on the lookout
Oh,
for
I
that.
see now. Okay, got it.
Sorry, just to add, you'll only see the profile page when you open if you have multiple profiles.
Correct.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
So, any other questions? Okay, no so far. That's great. So once you have downloaded this, what you essentially do is set up the intervals that you want to tackle this. So for example, let's go to here, and then you can go to options. In options, I just have the default setup, right? How many new cards am I going to do on a daily basis? Grace has a great kind of scheduling system. I will show you guys that during the later parts of the demo, but she's essentially recommending you do 60 new cards. So 60 new cards, what that essentially means is new cards that you've never seen before and that you're going to be seeing for the very first time that day, right? So I've set mine to 100. She recommends, based off of different modules and different terms, to do let's say 60 or 75, etc. So just be aware of that. Okay. The next thing you can do is the graduating interval. Essentially you can set it to however long you want. So for example, let's say you are very familiar with the card and you got it right away. I typically just set it to the default of 1 day because I'm a person who needs constant reinforcement of the material. So even if I get a card right, I want to make sure I get that card right again the next day. So the ease interval, I set it to 4. It's default. It comes with that. And then the starting ease, I've set it to 250%. That's the stock that it comes in terms of the Anki build. Okay. You can always create your own custom profiles. You can like set it to different intervals. You can do all sorts of things and you can switch back and forth from them. Okay.
Sorry, a quick one. I missed. How did you get to this box? I think that I was distracted. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no problem. So you click options and then here. So it's specifically if you go to, let me go to the decks, and sorry, the Zoom window is in the way. And then you go to this particular deck that you're going to be working on, and you go to options. Okay.
Is it possible you can also show like the other tabs like reviews, labs, general, just really quickly?
Sorry, which ones?
Just the default settings, like the one, like I know there's a new card tab and then there's like review. But I just want to see like those settings also really quickly.
Yeah, I've sent the parental limit for the max that I want to do is like 300 review cards a day. And you can change this to how much ever you want. Some people are comfortable doing 50 cards, or sorry, 500 new reviewed cards that day. And that's completely up to them. Depends on how much they want to dedicate. I've set mine to 300 because essentially I want to do roughly about, I want to look at 400 cards a day. And depending on how much I repeat them, I might be doing close to like 500 to 600 cards overall.
I see. And what is your lab settings? You're in the next tab?
Is set to here.
Okay, and then leech action. Leech is like how like you said you suspend the card. So if you don't get the card enough times, then it automatically is just suspended and you won't see it on the deck. Or will they notify you? Okay.
Yeah, the way you suspend cards is I'll show you guys. For example, when we're going into this particular deck, this is the M1 M2 deck for term 2, right? I can just go ahead and Command A, select all of these, and I can just go ahead and suspend, toggle suspend. And now when you do that, it all becomes yellow, right? What that essentially means is it's not going to ever show up at all. It's just being suspended in time and space.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep, no problem.
My next question to you is that if you are doing, let's say you are doing a deck, let's say I choose 100 questions a day, right?
Mhm. Was there a follow-up to this? Sorry.
The questions are coming. Are they new questions? Yeah.
They are new. They are not new questions, but they're new cards that you haven't seen for the relevant material that you're covering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Will you show us like how to because I opened the link for I think for Grace's M1 M2 deck, but I don't know how to like import that, like open it in Anki.
Yeah, I'll show you guys that right now. Sorry, my computer is a hot mess, but I want to make sure you guys see it. So I have multiple decks here. So if you can see here, I have term 1, term 4, the cheesy light year deck, the M1, M2, which is the traditional one. And then I have term 2, term 3, and then term 3 that I created. So I have all of these different versions that I've saved. And this is all, some of them are downloaded or some of them are saved, right? For example, let's say I'm creating a fresh deck that I just downloaded. What I essentially do is go to here. I can either import a file or I can just go ahead and find the file that I've downloaded and just double click, and then it'll say processing. And it'll tell you, it should, if it's gone correctly and everything's good, it will spit this kind of box at you and it's say, you know, it's found this number of files. It's going to add this number of new cards from this file. And the things that have been skipped, it's going to tell you, and then you hit close, and then it's going to show you the new deck that you just inputted here.
How do we download the deck itself like onto our Mac? Because like I'm trying to do that and I'm having trouble.
Yeah, no worries. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up
Thank you.
our Google Drive and I'll show you guys.
The Wi-Fi on campus is like really bad. Just like it took me 25 minutes to download the Grace's deck.
Yeah, it's and they're big files, so just be aware of this. Try to find the best Wi-Fi that you can. Once you download it, there's less of a hassle to kind of deal with this, but that initial download is a pain. So here's our Google Drive, and it has a list of different resources and things. It's a good one to kind of bookmark and save. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes. Yeah. I just need to figure out how to get to that.
Yeah, I'm going to show you guys that. So the link is in our Facebook page. I will also share it in the group chat in a minute, but it has term specific resources, other DES pages that I compiled that I use on a regular basis. This includes Dog Mom and Scrubs DES. So they're really helpful, and you guys can take a look at those. And I've linked out the Anki schedules as well as Anki cards and decks that you guys will need, as well as SGU specific textbooks. Okay, so those are all there for your guys' download and usage. So you go to schedules in Anki. Here you can have specific decks that you need for each term and schedules. For example, for my T1s here, you can see how there's term 1 Anki right here. You click on that and you can pick any number of these. So term 1 Anki M1, M2 tagged decks. That one is the one that I used when I was in term 1. There's also one that is for lab exams. That's also there, as well as OSCEs, which is your physical examination for those who are going to be doing it virtually, as well as for those who are going to be doing it in person. Okay? Question?
So the lab ones are just for like lab sessions?
The lab ones are for your learning for the lab exams and for your lab sessions, correct?
Okay.
Question. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Go ahead.
And the term 1 is just that's like everything else, basically your lectures and like covers lecture material.
Correct. Okay. Now, the thing with this is like for those who are coming into like this term for your term 1 essentially, there's also a nice schedule that Grace has kindly put together, and it shows you what you can do on a daily basis. For example, on Monday when you guys start your day, there are resources and things that you can kind of utilize, as well as the number of Anki cards you should be doing that day, right? She recommends doing 120 review cards. I tend to do a little bit more than that, and it's changed a lot over the years. But this is all a suggestion as to what you can potentially do going through your first term and your first module here at SGU, okay? All of this is on the Google Drive.
Question, if you are term 2, you still use the flashcards, the Anki cards under the term 1 folder, correct?
No, we use a term 2 specific one. The link to that is right here. So you go to schedules and Anki and go to term 2, and then it's right here. Grace has compiled it for our usage.
Thank you.
No problem.
Under
I have
old
a quick-
schedules.
This
Under
link,
old
is
schedules, the
this
one that you
a
just showed us.
M1, M2 link?
Sorry, there were too many people speaking. Raise your guys' hands and make sure you guys give each other turns. I think Halia, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
butchering your name.
Helia, it's okay. So the schedule that you just showed us that we can like follow along with, that's under old schedules right here?
No,
Or is
this
it
is right
by
here.
term?
Term
by
1.
term.
Yeah, term 1, and then you go to specifically term 1 Anki.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, next question. I am not seeing anyone else speak up, so I'm going to move along. So for my folks who are attending who are coming from different terms, term 1 is there, term 2 is there, term 3, and you can download each of the specific Anki decks for that, as well as the schedules that are attached in the Firehouse Med group, okay? Awesome. There are more participants raising their hands. What's up? First one, Abdel. Sorry if I'm butchering your name.
You're good. That was good. So I had a quick question. I noticed also in the chat that a few people are trying to download the Grace decks, but it appears that there's like some kind of importing issue. And I'm not sure if that's something you might be able to go over.
For any sort of those technical issues, make sure you guys put it into the SU Anki page, because that's where they can help you more with the technical kind of hiccups. Sometimes you have to use a older version. That's why I'm telling you guys to get started on Anki earlier, so you can figure out all of this weird hiccups and things along the way. So just in case if you need to delete everything and start over, you guys can do that before the term starts and you're not panicking during the actual time when you guys are in the term.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I can't address all of the technical stuff. I will try to do my level best to troubleshoot as much as I can, but yeah. Ilya, you're next.
Yes, so on I'm looking on the Google Drive. So for us, term 1, we should like really focus on the term 1 Anki like folder that's in there and like look at those decks, I guess.
Correct.
Okay. Cool.
No problem. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, moving right along. Now, once you have set up everything, let's move back to desktop 1. Once you do have everything set up, right, you can just go through the cards. For example, let's say I'm starting term 4, which I am, and let's say I want to start off week 1 by doing the 26 cards that are in place. I go ahead and hit study, and then I have this, and it's a error, right? Let me ignore this. Why is this showing? For example, this one. I'm just giving you guys an example here. Don't worry if it doesn't look exactly the same. So free radicals may be eliminated by metal carrier proteins such as blank and ceruloplasmin. I have no clue. So it's apparently transferrin and ceruloplasmin. Good to know. So for example, I didn't know exactly what I was looking for here. So this might be one of the options where you would make your own cards based off of the lecture notes, right? And if you don't really understand what's going on, often folks who have made the decks will tag in any sort of pictures and things that explain that said card. For example, okay, I got this wrong, even if I had gone to lecture and understood the material. So let's say I need to see it again. So I hit again, and in less than 1 minute, it's going to show that card again. So you guys can see how this whole process puts into memory the cards you get wrong, essentially, quote unquote wrong, and it ensures the ones that you are comfortable with don't often just keep on appearing, right? So you don't want to just become super comfortable with just one thing. You want to make sure you address your weak points as well. So that same process you'll go through like this. Factor 12 is needed. Hageman's factor is essentially to start this whole cascade. So this is important thing that we learned in term 3. So there we go. And let's say I got this right. So good. I hit good. And in the next 10 minutes, it's going to show up again, right? Sometimes when you have these technical errors, you can also work through those as well, right? Sometimes these things happen, and those technical issues, if you ever run across them, make sure you guys take a screenshot and throw it into the SU Anki page, and folks will help you address it, okay? That is my little quick demo of everything with Anki that I usually do on a regular, okay? Next, we are going to switch on over to any questions that you guys might have.
Like you said, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, like you said before, is there any way to pull up an older deck versus this newer deck?
I'm not really sure what you mean by older deck versus a newer deck.
Because when I uploaded the newer deck, I lost the 800 cards I had before, and this is just showing 188. So I want to get back the older deck for
The
term
older
2.
deck, the older deck that you've essentially downloaded it somewhere. So you just have to search through your computer and then hit import again, or just double click the file, and it should hopefully pull it back into the program, Anki program.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I'm going to just end this recording and just say good luck and keep an eye out for our weekend review sessions, but I am going to stay a little bit after. Thank you for those who showed up. I'm happy to stay and answer any sort of other technical questions, but just for making sure that folks feel comfortable asking any sort of question, I just want to go ahead and end the recording and make sure you guys are all good.